On this day, January 24th, 19 years ago, we saw pawn from e2 to e4 by a then 13-year-old Magnus Carlsen in the Vik and Say tournament. His opponent played pawn to c6, the Caro-Kann defense. And we saw the main move, pawn to d4, by the very young Magnus Carlsen. Since this game was played, Magnus Carlsen has won a load of world championships, and he has won the A group of Vik and Say and record 8 times, and he may win it a 9th time, because it is, as the time of this recording, still going on, and he is still playing, this time in the A group. International master, the Dutch Sipke Ernst with black, played pawn to d5 here, and young Magnus played knight to c3. D takes e by Sipke, who was an international master, but would later go on to become a strong Grand Master. He had, at the time of this game, a rating of about 2500, and young Magnus Carlsen was also an international master. His rating was 2484 at the time of this game, and he played knight takes pawn, as is theory in this position. And here a little thing that I always found kind of paradoxical about this opening, the Caro-Kann. Bishop to f5, attacking the knight. Knight goes back to g3, reorienting itself, attacking the bishop. Bishop only has one good square to go to, which is g6. And now h4 by Magnus Carlsen, trying to play h5, as is theory in this variation of the Caro-Kann, and that would trap the bishop. It would have nowhere to go. So the recommended move, probably the only move in the position that makes any sense, is h6. So you give an escape square to the bishop. And here is not the paradoxical part yet, but it is soon to come. Magnus Carlsen played knight to f3, and we saw knight to d7 by black. And here is the paradoxical part. Now Magnus plays h5, attacking the bishop. The bishop can't capture, the pawn is adequately defended, so the bishop drops back. And here, the main theoretical move, and what young Magnus Carlsen also played, is bishop to d3. Apparently this is the best move. It allows black to capture the bishop. Bishop takes d3. And here Magnus played the theoretical move, queen takes d3. And this exchange of bishops is quite paradoxical to me. White played in such a way as to force black to spend a lot of moves with this bishop. One move, and also include this, so you could say that's half a wasted move. The pawn is a little effective here. It does cover g5, but it's half a wasted move. It's not developing a piece, it's not taking control of the center, as you would usually want to do in the opening, and then you waste a move again here to move the bishop back. And you just allow, by playing bishop d3, black to gain all those lost tempi back in a way. But by exchanging these bishops, but you could also say, of course, that white is now ahead in development. You have the queen developed, although it's a bit early. We have the two knights. We could consider castling kingside, and we also reserve the right to castle queenside, and that is what you will most often see in this variation of the Caro-Kann. Pawn to e6, allowing the bishop to come out, allowing the queen to come out, and fighting a little bit for center control. Magnus plays bishop f4, so that there's no moves like bishop d6. And also we are fighting even more for control of the e5 square. Knight to f6, knights before bishops, and castles queenside by 13-year-old international master and soon to be chess legend extraordinaire Magnus Carlsen. Bishop to d7, getting ready to castle to the king side. That couldn't possibly be a problem, could it? All of these pieces, I mean, the rook, could it possibly be a problem to castle into this attack? Well, believe it or not, all of this is accepted theory. White is not supposed to have a giant advantage here, but white does have the initiative, allowing Magnus to play knight to e4. This is one of those small things that seem a little bit paradoxical to me, because the plan here, you will see the plan with this knight, is to exchange itself for the knight on f6, which is recharged by this knight on d7, so the knight on d7 can come and get further into the game. To me it seems a little bit as if it would superficially help black, but in reality what white is doing is making ready for a big attack. Sipke Ernst, who is an international master at this point in time and who would later go on to become a grandmaster, of course does not want his young opponent to have all the fun, so he plays queen over here to a5, attacking the pawn on a2, which Magnus defends simply with king b1, defending the pawn. And now black castles short. And here we approach the end of the opening phase where both players knew the theory, and we start to begin to get a glimpse of the unbelievable genius of Magnus Carlsen, who would go on in a number of years to absolutely dominate the chess world, breaking record after record after record after record. He starts out by exchanging these knights. Knight takes f6. That is check. We recapture. Black recaptures with the knight. Knight takes f6. And if I was playing black and I didn't know this game, I would think, okay, you are wasting your time. You are spending a lot of moves to just help me get a better knight. That was, my knight on d7 wasn't doing so much. But here we see knight e5 getting closer, and basically white is planning to use all of his pieces to just do a very, very big attack. Not really sensing the danger. We see rook on a to d8 from black, and this move is about the pawn here on d4. So the rook move coming to d8 is attacking this pawn. It's also pinning the pawn to the queen. So if you imagine that we play a move like c5 or even bishop to c5, probably not advisable to play that move, but the point is that you can really, as white, go in and capture this because you expose your queen to this attack here. And Magnus therefore played queen e2. And that was really all there was to it. At least that is what black was thinking. So he thought, okay, my young opponent just had to move backwards and just allowed me to play c5. I will now be able to get a good attack, neutralize the positional advantage my opponent has in the center. All will be good. And here it is, that the unbelievable brilliance of Magnus Carlsen gets on full display. And can you find the move? So today Magnus Carlsen is known as this unfathomable positional strategical genius. What do I mean by that? I mean that he is seen, he's perceived as somebody who has an absolutely incredible understanding of chess and where to put his pieces. He will win his games very slowly, very methodically, usually without any display of fireworks, simply by slowly making moves that all of them are a little bit better than his opponents, and that will compound interest until he has a crushing advantage, and he's able to do this against the biggest players in the world. But don't be fooled into thinking that Magnus Carlsen isn't also a brilliant tactical mind. Even at 13-year-old, he spotted a tactic here that's pretty unbelievable. So what is the move? He picked up his knight, and then he placed it on g6, quite simply attacking this bishop. And you may think, well, why isn't black just capturing that knight? And black was thinking that as well, and that's what black ended up doing. So let's first look at the only other real alternative, which would be to play rook on f to e8. And here white is just trying to win a pawn and get a very nice game that you can grind out a win from. It would be knight takes bishop, check, rook takes knight, and actually just pawn takes pawn. And now white is threatening rook takes rook. So black plays rook takes rook, rook takes rook, and the problem is black is down a pawn. That would be this one, and you can't come in and recapture it because of the simple fork, bishop to d6, protected by the rook, forking the queen and the rook. So if you can't play queen takes pawn, then you are simply down a pawn, and the position, you don't have any compensation, you're just down a pawn with an unpleasant position and loads of activity. For black, a move such as bishop to d6 may come very soon, solidifying this pawn, and just it will be very unpleasant to play. Okay, so let's reverse actually a little bit strangely, but I actually want the original rook to be on the square. Let's see. We had a bishop here. We had a knight here. We had a rook there. So instead, black tried to test this idea out to see, can you really back this ridiculous sacrifice up? Pawn on f takes knight on g6. So, what is the first move? Always look for checks first. Queen takes e6 check. That's attacking the bishop. All of this, of course, black had seen. But you don't want to defend the bishop and block the check like this, because pawn takes and you actually lose the rook. Pawn is going to capture the rook and you can't move it, and there's really nothing you can do here. So the way black was trying to justify this was different. He played king h8, not h7, where there could be a check. h8, saying, oh, but if you capture the bishop, if Magnus had done this, then he'd say, I can play knight d5, attacking the queen and attacking the bishop here twice. But these two pieces, then I will regain my material and I will not be losing. So Magnus Carlsen had realized this when he played this idea and didn't try to regain the material. He was fine sacrificing material. In fact, he wanted to sacrifice some more material. H takes G. Okay, so what is that about? Now the h6 pawn is in a precarious position. We can actually see bishop takes h6, pawn takes h6, and rook takes h6, leading very quickly to a checkmating situation. Also now queen takes bishop is actually becoming a real threat. But black had an answer ready that I'm pretty sure he would have calculated when he chose to capture the knight on g6. That answer is knight back here. So this knight came from over here, 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 and then back, defending the bishop, also defending h6. So, Magnus Carlsen, 13 years old, 19 years ago. If you put yourself in his shoes, can you find the follow-up? He's playing a little bit like Mikhail Tal here. He's just going for maximum activity and not caring about how much material he has to sacrifice. So we are already down a knight. How about we sacrifice a bishop as well? Bishop takes h6. But pawn takes h6. Defended by the knight. That's the whole point from black's play. Well, let's also sacrifice the rook. Rook takes h6, and that is check. That rook really has to be captured, otherwise it will be checkmate in one, like here and mate. So knight takes rook. So now the material situation is that we have a rook and a queen as the pieces for white. Black also has a rook and a queen, but he also has another rook, a bishop, and a knight. but white is completely crushing. He just have to find the correct way, which I believe, given how perfectly he played it, he's basically making no mistakes in this entire game. I believe he had this all figured out. So first, Magnus plays queen takes e7, regaining a little bit of material, also more importantly threatening queen h7 checkmate. But here you had to figure out that there's basically only one move that black can play, but you have to calculate this because knight f7 blocks this, and there are not too many ways. In fact, there's only one way to win this game from here as white. Is it rook check? No. Actually, the king can escape. King to g8. Is it some queen check? No. Here we just regain a little bit more material with g takes f7. And this threatens rook h1, which will lead to checkmate, and it paralyzes black to some significant degree. And black was maybe able to see all of this, and was maybe able to see that king to g7 stops this check. It's no longer checkmate. And it's very tough actually to figure out the win here for white. White is down a lot of material, but if he is able to utilize the exposed nature of black's king in this position, he will be able to win. The position is technically winning, but you have to find the absolute correct way. And it may not seem obvious, but in this position it is absolutely key that the queen is defending e1. So why is that important? It's absolutely critical, because e1 is black's only source of counterplay in this position. What do I mean by that? Can you find the move? Rook h1 is no longer check. It doesn't come with a big threat. We would like to check the king, activate the rook, check the king. So how do we do it? And here Magnus is one of many of Magnus's brilliant moves in this game. Rook to d3, simply threatening rook check, and that will lead to checkmate. Notice that we are not able to play queen e1 check with a checkmate like rook back and then capturing the rook. That would be checkmate, because white's queen is defending. We would just see queen takes queen. Black gets a really good idea here. Rook d6. So that looks like it can be captured. Queen takes rook, but then the queen wouldn't be defending e1, and then we would see a checkmate. Here is the finish to the game. Rook g3 check. Rook g6 defending. That was the whole point of this rook lift. But now queen e5 check. And if you can't block this, rook is pinned, and if you go anywhere on the h file, you will get checkmated in somewhere between 2 and 5 moves. So the only move is king takes the pawn on f7. And here we see the technique. It's very nice. Queen to f5 check. And the most testing try is king to something like here, or here, these moves are like checkmate in 8 or 9 moves. It's a long variation. The king actually ends over here in some of the variations, but it's not a particularly difficult checkmate for an international master to calculate, because the tree is very narrow. It doesn't have very many branches. Every move white gives a check, and on every move black has one legal move, or maybe 2 legal moves, or 3 legal moves, but only one is not immediately checkmate. So instead of resigning, we actually saw a very nice sportsmanship by Sipke Ernst, the black player here. He played rook f6, allowing checkmate in one very pretty checkmate. Can you find it? Can you find it? Queen to d7, and that is checkmate. This file taken care of by the rook, and the 2 squares the king could go to occupied by his own pieces. So that was the first thing most of the chess world heard of Magnus Carlsen, was this particular game. But even within the same year, he very famously drew a rapid game against Garry Kasparov. I have a video on that as well, and everybody started to notice, and yeah, we've been noticing him a lot ever since. Thanks for watching this video. I hope I will see you in the next one.